Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today to our Business Bites. My name's Victoria, so I'm part of the Kent and Victor Chamber of Commerce in membership. With me today is Annie, who's in events, and she's our little tech wizard behind the scenes, pressing all the right buttons. So thank you, Annie. So a really, really great and important topic today. What is artificial intelligence? We couldn't think of anyone better than our valued chamber member, Christopher and Toby from IWP. So thank you very, very much to you both. And Juliet, I believe Juliet's come in to view as well. So hello, nice to see you. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Christopher and Toby to help us learn more about what's in store for the future. So thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Toby. Over to you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who's joining us this lunchtime. So I'm Christopher Chave-Cox, the Chief Strategy Officer of IWP Group, and joining me is Toby Taylor, the Chief Technology Officer of IWP Group. We've worked together for quite some time. I've been his client, he's been my client, we've been colleagues, and now we co-founded IWP Group, which came out of a research project on how to make a smart, COVID-free, sustainable workspace where we're joining sustainability, prop tech, and enterprise IT together. That has led to us working with a lot of AI platforms, and hopefully in this talk we can demystify some of the bits around artificial intelligence for you. To me, artificial intelligence is the ability of machines to carry out intelligent tasks that normally would be carried out by a person. Toby, would you mind expanding a little bit more for people? What is artificial intelligence?
Absolutely. Hey everyone, once again, just extending to Chris's point, thanks for joining us today. It's really, really appreciated. Artificial intelligence can have two meanings. I think for a lot of people, the understanding that they will want to take away from today is the understanding that artificial intelligence is created as a way to remove programming tasks, and now that is programming as in typing and code, or if it is administrative work that would be otherwise cost prohibitive for humans to be doing. And a way to think about that, and a way to sort of like think about where that will impact you and where you're going to see benefit, are when you are interacting with systems and finding yourself having to do the same thing repeatedly. Bringing that down into sort of a more technological level, what artificial intelligence essentially is we often refer to it in the industry as machine learning, which is where a computer program essentially learns as it goes along, and it learns essentially by making a rapid succession of mistakes until a desired outcome is met, and then it will do that again and again and again. We often look at we talk about in industries like various standards of how we meet this quotient and this idea of what becomes something intelligent. A basic principle of this is the Turing test, which is something that you'll see with the very prevalent ChatGPT, which is the idea that if you ask a human and a computer a question, the computer is seen to be intelligent where it is impossible to differ between the two. So ChatGPT is a great example of that, where as it is becoming better and better at making mistakes with the human language, and therefore by being exact with the human language, or any other language for that matter, it is able to drill down into that coefficient of success. And we'll see that increasingly as we go on, and as I start to talk to you about some of the platforms and the things that we develop, will hopefully give you an idea about where this can be applied in your daily lives and daily operations.
Toby, would it be useful if you showed how the platform Sense AI, which is designed around sustainability, we've incorporated AI to help with energy efficiency?
Absolutely. So a bit of background as to what Chris is talking about. Sense AI is a platform that we develop in-house at IWP. What Sensei allows us to do is rapidly collect data within buildings, so portfolio-wide views, take that information, combine it with other information, and we'll start getting into that as I show you the way that this system works, and then providing you with like real-world outcomes that will give you something valuable and malleable to actually make informed decisions about. An example of this is here. This is sort of our executive summary, and what this shows you is consumption data of your electric, gas, water, along with geographic locations, reduced energy consumption, carbon emissions, save trees, and sort of like nice information for you to sort of get a broad understanding of your portfolio. The way that it does this is by right now we're seeing a very, very sort of 15,000 foot high view of the detail that lives underneath this. If we can drill in further onto the platform, and this is where things start to sort of really come together. Just wait for this all to render out. We can see here what we call consumption heat maps. Now this is where AI is absolutely phenomenal, and this is the sort of thing that makes life much easier for people to understand. Here we're using this technology here that we refer to as heat maps. Now this isn't heat as in warm or cold. What this is that this uses something called trend analysis, this is once again a founding principle of where AI is brilliant. What AI is able to do is able to track usage power across days and then work out what your average usage across that time is. What AI can do then is go, well, what more information could I use? So for instance, we're in the UK. Probably the best thing when you're talking about power, gas, water, any consumption is tracking against temperature. So all of a sudden we can go, hey, we've got these temperature variables, we've got these power usage variables. They make sense, they line up. You can generally see, if it's hot outside, we're likely to have more power usage because people have got the aircon on. When that's different, and when those two lines aren't in alignment, that's off trend. And all of a sudden it can go, well, is that a trend that happens every week anyway? Is something that happens within the building or within your domicile that might change, affect that reading? Like, is it a day that you get lots of deliveries and therefore you've got your doors open all day or something like that? And that's where this heat map becomes really useful. All of a sudden you can go, hey, hang on a minute. I want to understand more about what could be generating that. And then this is where you can drill down even further. So for instance, at the moment, we're seeing a retail company with 3 shops in some pretty prominent parts of London. And here we can see the individual breakdowns of their HVAC, which is high voltage air conditioning, lighting and plugs. All of a sudden we can go to a granular level of understanding. And once again, that's where AI is really, really useful because it's done all of the number crunching for you and given you that information. So instead of you having to manually go through bills, meter readings, potentially even having to get an electrician out to actually manually check stuff for you, this system does that and presents it in a way that's very human, tactile, and kind of one of the basic principles of why we like AI in business is because it allows you to be more human. It gives you more time to actually do human things, like look at this and make rational decisions about what you can do. This system doesn't know particularly about what your business is. You do. This gives you that information, and the onus is on you to actually make these decisions. It can help you with that as well. We have numerous other things that we do on here. Some clever things that we really, really like. The concepts of manual entry. What's really handy about this is that we do consumptions and usage of, tracking data of how much power costs. You can drag a bill into here. And what that'll allow you to do is basically compare it to what your usage is. So therefore, you've got a justification case to argue with your power company, which is, I'm sure just about every business that's on this call will be feeling the pressure that we certainly are around the cost of power and why this system has become so sort of prevalent and useful for us. There is also obviously a lot of numbers in the background here, and that's kind of where a lot of the artificial intelligence areas work. We pull in lots of sources of data, and this is one of those things that's really useful for AI. Once again, you don't have to go and do all the effort of number crunching, right? We can pull in any statistic that we like that we can capture in a building and then just keep adding it into this data set and building more and more comparisons, more and more links and understanding. And that's where AI is fantastically useful, because it's just a tool. It's a tool for you to be able to combine useful stuff that you see in front of you, remove the mundane operations and the mundane needs, and bring you back into, as I say, a position to be more human. And that's kind of what this system does. Chris, is there anything else that you'd like me to sort of focus on with this?
Well, I think it's one of those of, when do you take power back from the computer?
When do you take power back for the computer? Well, I mean, that's obviously.
Is when would you, or how would you use this to then incorporate this into a decision for a human to make, rather than saying, letting a machine turn off the lights, for instance?
Absolutely. So that is a really important thing. This platform does two things. First of all, it gives you the information to make decisions. So as I've shown you already, you can drill down into specific days of usage, and that will tell you, hey, lots of plugs were turned on 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. You probably should work out why that is. That those plugs could be server rooms, they could be access control. Someone's plugged in a hairdryer. It could be anything. But this system gives you that information. But the step forward from that is automation, which is obviously what Chris is talking about, which is the idea of a computer making decisions on your behalf. Now, there are two ways of doing that. The way that is, I think, quite scary to a lot of people, which is the way that the computer just gets on with it. And that's something that I think is down the line going to be quite prevalent. We see it increasingly a lot already with decisions that are made. And I think that a lot of people probably on this call have come to that frustration point already, which is customer service agents that are automated, and they make decisions that you don't agree with. There is a middle ground though, which is we kind of call that on this platform, we call it alarming, which is where alerts and alarms. What we do with this is we can create, say, what we talk about, thresholds. This is an idea of, we take the data that's coming in, we do something called trend analysis across it, as we spoke earlier. We then give it what's called a control period. So this is how long at which you want to sort of look at your trend. Now, we're in the UK, the weather here fluctuates so much that you would be seen to look back a month. You're better off looking over the last week, because that's likely to give you the full gamut of weather that we've got here. We can then set various measurements and requirements, and what this can do is this can go, hey, all of a sudden we've had a big spike in power in a meeting room or in a plug load. Ping someone a message to say, hey, this has happened. Do you want us to turn this off? And that all of a sudden means that you can, as a human, you can investigate systems that you might not have connected, CCTV, access control to see if the room is in use. And then you can make a human decision. But you've already got, hopefully, in theory, you should do, because the system should give it to you, the information you require to take this notification or this thing, whatever it is that you've got, and then actually sort of make an informed decision. And that's the big, powerful human element here. And as I say, the point of this system is to make you more human and give you that ability to make more tactile and useful decisions, but not basically be the big bad robot, which I think a lot of people are very concerned about AI doing. I think they see it more increasingly prevalent in lots of their kind of daily interactions. But from a business perspective, most people feel that it is far better, to slowly and practically integrate this in the daily systems that you use. So whether or not it's a finance system where you're automatically reading bills like this system does, or if it's an asset management system where you're using it to track ages and depreciations of things that we normally have to do via bookkeeping. You can take lots of mundane tasks and automate them, and that's what gives you the power kind of to basically get on with your work, without necessarily having to worry about getting bogged down in detail. I think that largely explains it, Chris.
Well, it leads on to my next question, which is where are the biggest challenges for businesses incorporating AI and linking systems together currently?
I think that it fits into two models. The primary area is just a general lack of understanding of what systems businesses should be purchasing, and it's a purchasing strategy. So this falls into the idea of, need driving purchasing without necessarily the forward strategy to make the decisions about things like open data, which we call APIs, necessarily about what data sharing is available. I think that they're both very, very important things that are relevant. And the other side of things is just an overarching understanding of the actual desired end result. AI has become such a sort of superfluous buzzword that people just chuck at any problem without really understanding what it is that they want to achieve. And with by working with people like us and other tech providers, we do our best and are kind of experts in understanding where those problems can be identified and where AI can be applied cleanly and neatly and in a controlled way. We often speak about AI sort of anthropomorphizing, giving it a name, which is actually really, really powerful, not only for helping people become more used to operate with it, but, I'm not necessarily going to talk about HAL 9000, but we can talk about, the idea of Alexa, for instance, having a name. What's actually very useful about that from a strict technology point of view is we treat people like with access, with passwords. I need to get into this system, so I need to give it a password. You can treat AI in the same way, and that's a really, really elegant way to sort of also deal with kind of, I've mentioned the 2 points, but there is a third, and obviously security, GDPR, compliance, and any of those areas are big things that we need to think about as part of our industry. AI is great, but ask yourself, should you be giving AI access to your entire HR database? No, probably not, because AI may not be great at not sharing that information. It's a very big deal with the likes of ChatGPT, for instance, where the sources of its information are very, very tightly monitored and curated to ensure that it isn't going off to the darkest corners of the internet and becoming problematic, which has been sort of endemic with previous AI projects, and is the reason why ChatGPT has been so successful, is because it has had this strong curation behind it. So I think that probably answers sort of around the challenges that people face. But obviously it is still something that is fairly new technology that's now become fairly accessible. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge that people are facing right now.
Victoria, would you like to switch? I mean, I think it's probably, with the time we've got, there's going to be a few questions around the topic of AI.
Yes. Would you like to start those questions then, if you finished your presentation? Definitely. I have got one that's come through from Alistair Sterling, and he's asked, will many people be losing their job?
I think the topic for that is more with the invention of the computer, for instance, people's jobs changed, but it's a case of, I think AI is going to create as many jobs as they're just going to be different jobs. The piece around it is, I think 80% of UK SMEs are now looking to incorporate. I think things will change. Example of that is myself and a client, both of us using ChatGPT, used that to rewrite a contract yesterday in about 10 minutes. And we're both happy with the results, which would have, resulted in normally a 2-week delay whilst we used outside legal counsel. I just think it's going to change the way we work rather than it replacing lots of jobs.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I like what Toby said as well. And you don't think about that really, is that you know, AI actually can help you become more human. So sometimes, you know, when you're, you know, desperately trying to get all your admin done, and, you know, you need to work a little bit more smarter so that you can then have the time to, you know, give it a more personal touch. So yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Christopher, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyone else got any questions?
It might be actually useful to sort of talk a slightly bit more to that point as well around the idea of job loss and job retention, because I think it's a very hot topic in terms of people's concerns about their jobs. I can certainly speak from industry. Me and Chris have done numerous talks on this. It's a question that we get asked a lot. In times when we've actually sat on governing panels, it has been first and foremost on people's minds as a push and as a drive to ensure that jobs are retained. Companies are not traditionally putting this system as an objective. It is about improving efficiency, and that means people doing more, and that is a human task. So I think that it's a very critical thing, but it's also something that I really want to make sure that people don't think is the first and foremost on the tech landscape's mind, because it absolutely is.
It's certainly been one which, when we've integrated multiple AI systems together to get an output, it is very much being focused about giving more time to people to be more human with their customers. In particular, I've seen a couple of other questions on Kieran's asked if resources or platforms interested in learning more about AI. I would say LinkedIn at the minute. LinkedIn is awash with information about AI, to a point that I would say it's almost got too much for me. But it's got a lot of very good resources, and it's got a lot of experts in the field, and it's got a lot of stuff that's from beginner to very advanced on there. And I can see that Ray's asked a question about sectors losing out. I think broadly any sector that doesn't embrace AI will lose out. It's not sector specific. I think it is one which you could argue that with AI as it is now, you could say that there's perhaps a generational gap, in that, for instance, I've worked in this field for a lot longer than I'd like to admit on this call, but it means that I can look at the output of an AI and know whether it's accurate or not to be able to be used. And I think for a lot of people who've got experience in their industry, it will give a massive time benefit. But that is very much more applicable to generative AI rather than some of the more functional AIs that are used around improving health and safety, or getting different, very manual processes to work more smoothly.
Yeah, I think to Chris's point about people losing out or sectors losing out, we have to remember that AI, and I think it is really important to have this sort of thought in mind, is that AI is just a technology stack at the end of the day. It's a very good one, it's a very elegant one, and it is definitely going to change the industry. But you can almost view it in the same way as other technology stacks that we've seen join us in recent years, the prevalence of video conferencing, Wi-Fi, you know, all of these systems that are have joined the marketplace and just become used to sort of just part of our everyday existence. I am unfortunately of an age when I remember when I worked in an office that didn't have Wi-Fi. The only access to the internet I had was via a cable. And you know, just you think about these incremental changes that we make, and like with anything, the first adopters are the ones who are likely to have the biggest issues. But this is where AI is brilliant, is that AI will recognize those issues and hopefully alleviate them for the people downstream. As I've sort of said earlier, that you know, there are also limitations of artificial intelligence, and I think that's something that's really important for people to take home from this call. That it isn't going to be, as I say, we're seeing a massive prevalence of people using it as the answer to lots of questions, where someone will say, "Oh, NHS waiting times are skyrocketing." Oh, AI. That's not a practical approach, and I think that we need to, as an industry, as technologists, it's really important for us to set realistic and positive goals, so that we can actually sort of really create something sort of positive and exciting and tangible for people to be able to sort of grab hold of and go, hey, that works, and that's really, really good, and people have retained their jobs and are being more human. I think that's where we want people to kind of go with the journey where they work with us.
Fantastic, thank you. Any more questions, anyone? Please feel free to unmute as well if you'd like to. It's a great opportunity if you do have any questions for Christopher and Toby in this session before we end.
Can I just ask about, say, like the caring sectors and stuff? I mean, how will it affect them, and like saying, like on the medical and sort of, you know, that sort of sector, when it is very sort of personal thing?
Can I just clarify? Are you talking more about kind of hospices and
yeah, that sort of stuff, yeah.
So it's had some very, very interesting elements, which again, for instance, particularly IoT and AI being joined together has been used very successfully in the caring sector. For instance, there's examples of local councils using it for not in a hospice, but someone of an elderly age. They're monitoring things such as the time that the kettle's been switched on, to know that actually if that person doesn't switch on their kettle at the kind of normal time period that they would do, that actually they should dispatch a carer to check if that person's all right. And that, I think it was Richmond Council in London, within the first week, were able to respond to, I think someone had a fall on the stairs, someone had an issue in the bath, but it was one which it was deemed that it would have been much more serious health-wise if that response hadn't been quicker, because they couldn't get to the phone and let anyone know that they weren't okay. I think in areas like hospices, etc., there's a lot of areas where, particularly around people and movement, that there's data in the building or further data points that can be put in that can help with health outcomes. Particularly people suffering from dementia has been one of the areas that I think there's a lot of eyes on at the minute, whether the use of IoT and AI technology can be used for quicker alerting if someone's not where they should be at a particular time without being intrusive to their privacy.
So what do you mean by IoT?
Sensors.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So IoT is an Internet of Things, and it is just a catch-all term for devices that are placed in places to read things. So it could be locations, air quality, heat, stuff like that. So in the instance that we're talking about, it is something that maybe measures the distance between something that someone wears and a front door. So for instance, if someone leaves their house and journeys beyond a certain point, certainly we've seen this with people with dementia and Alzheimer's, where they've traveled beyond a safe distance and they've got an alert, and it's removed the need for potentially more invasive methods like CCTV and stuff like that, and allowed an additional layer of comfort for families and stuff like that. It's there is massive potential within these systems to do that.
Oh, great, thanks for that. It's really, really informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. That was a really great question. So, yeah, end of the session now. If anyone does have, any questions in future, then please let myself and Annie know if you'd like us to connect you with Christopher and Toby. And also this session will be recorded and put onto the Kent Invicta Chamber website. So that will be next week sometime. And I know that Annie will probably be sending out that via email to all attendees anyway for you, so that you can, take a look back really. But thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you, Toby. That was such a fascinating talk and presentation. And you delivered it so well, given us lots to think about. Really, really great. Thank you ever so much. Everyone, you have a wonderful rest of the week, and please do join us in future for more Business Bites, if you just look at the events calendar. But thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much. Enjoy your day.